So Vikings in North America, and where does the word America come from? That's what we're going to deal with in this presentation. Probably when you think of Vikings, this is the image that comes to mind. Open long ships with crews of men that are manning oars. And in some ways you are correct. They were seafaring people. They come from the areas of Norway, Sweden, Finland, those areas. So if we go on here, and look at our essential questions. So we're going to talk about when does history begin for America, the countries exploring, why do they settle America, and then of course with Columbus's importance, hero or villain. So let's move on. So the questions here: why do European powers explore and settle the Americas? Examples of those nations, who they were and where they settled. Technological advancements that made exploration possible at the time, meaning why didn't they find North America sooner? And then lasting importance of Columbus. And we're going to try and give you some examples there. So I'm going to ask you to get out your world maps that we were working on last week. They look like this. If you could find that for me, please, and have it all labeled. That's good. I want you to contemplate this question. Is when and where does America's history start? Does it start with Native Americans? Does it start 10, 25,000 years ago with the ancient Native Americans crossing the land bridge, perhaps the discovery by the Europeans in the late 15th century, the late 1400s. So, picture you're looking at here, in your reading about the Vikings, this would be Eric the Red, okay? A mythic feature there in the sagas of the people from the Nordic country. Maybe some of you are even familiar with a show on the History Channel simply called Vikings. So, take a look at this map and you can sort of see the area of Scandinavia that I'd mentioned before. You're talking about Norway and Sweden, Finland, also these areas here of Iceland and Greenland. Down here would, of course, be the British Isles here, and then you have Ireland here. So you can sort of see their early voyages. They're coming away from here and moving out into the areas of Iceland and Greenland. You can sort of see the name Eric the Red in 985 A.D. Let's play a nice little game here. So somewhere you get a piece of paper or you just want to play along. So are we looking at Greenland or Iceland? So I want you to think. What do you think? Did you pick Iceland? Hopefully you did. Let's do it again. Greenland or Iceland? Take a look. Greenland. All right. Greenland or Iceland? Here we go. Hopefully you're going to be 3 for 3. Yeah, Greenland. One more. Greenland or Iceland. Hopefully you did well on that little quiz. Iceland is a unique country, really beautiful, and it's a little misleading with the name. So Iceland has lots of green, has lots of active volcanoes, all kinds of interesting things there. So let's take a look here at this young man. This would be Leif Erikson, who would be son of Eric the Red. So if we go to our map again, you can sort of see his name down here. And so his is going to be the one that actually goes away from here and goes along the coast of what we refer to as North America today, Canada and those areas. So he becomes the first Viking to actually reach the Western Hemisphere in the areas of northern Canada. So there he is, Leif Erikson. Now, why is he important? Well, these are the areas that he's exploring. It looks a little rough. You can sort of see this is what he would have encountered. This kind of landscape. So he's sailing up here in the area of Baffin Island, north of what is Hudson Bay today. These are the areas that he is exploring. Okay, and this is the place that he comes to, a place known as Lawns O Meadows. You can sort of see an inset. This gives you kind of a perspective of where this little landmass is, way up here. Okay, so basically newfound land. We just call it Newfoundland today. Take a look here at these stunning pictures of what Newfoundland looks like. Very inhospitable climate. This is where he finds what we would refer to as North America. Now, here's a little cartoon. I'll let you just read it by yourself. Now, most of you might have obviously known that the Vikings came. Maybe you did not. But you have to imagine that they came here 500 years before Columbus. So think of all the technological advances that happened in 500 years for the Vikings to be able to cross the North Atlantic Sea 500 years before Columbus did it. Okay, good question to always ask is why do European powers do it? Why do they send men out in ships looking for new land? Or why do they even promote the idea of exploration? So take a look here. Now this was your map, but you have to understand the map that they understood. So the map that they understood was a world that looked very different than ours. So we take all that away, okay? And this is what they knew of their world. Much, much smaller, probably by a third or 2/3. Take a look. This is a map from that time period. So you can clearly see this would be Europe, this would be Africa, but you could understand how far off they are as what Asia looks like, the Middle East, the Far East, very inaccurate maps at the time. So why are they exploring? Well, the main thing that motivates most people, increase money, wealth for the kings and queens. So they sent their explorers out trying to increase that. So you can sort of see these blue lines coming down the western coast of Africa on their way to the Spice Islands of India and China. And you can sort of, if you can see all the various things that they are looking for that the Far East has, that Europe is very interested in. Other thing is, if you have to understand that we're coming out of the Renaissance, we're coming into the Renaissance, out of the Middle Ages. So that's a burst in new learning. And also these people want to spread their culture. And culture is made up of two dominant things. They want to spread their language and their religion into the rest of the world. The technological advancements that made that possible. All right, well, they got better maps. That makes exploration easier. This device called an astrolabe, if you look right here, this is a maritime device that they use to figure out where they are. Also, you can sort of see back here at this one. At sea, of course, there's no reminders of where you are, so the most important thing that you would have to have knowledge of is the stars, the sun, the moon, and then from that you can plot where you are on the surface. So, moving on, we got a magnetic compass. Most of you all understand that. And then we get better ships. So when you think of Columbus sailing, these would be the ships that he would sail in. Probably no longer than about 100 feet, had a crew between 70 and 80, what we call a caravel. If you look at this picture, a 3-masted ship. Okay, and so these were the devices that they go exploring in the late 1400s. Now, if you're looking at a map, you realize that Europe and Asia are connected. So some of you might be thinking, why did they just go overland? Why are these countries seeking new trade routes? And who were those explorers and what did they accomplish? Well, if we take a look and look, countries are seeking new trade routes because you have to understand what's going on at the time. We've all heard maybe of the Crusades, and so that central area of the Middle East was an area that you wanted to avoid because those people were of a different culture, different religion, and you could run into trouble. So they felt the water was the best place. Portugal becomes the leader because of their location. So let's take a look. Down here you can sort of see Portugal is right here. So they are actually the world leader in the late 1400s of sea navigation. The map here shows you with the arrow, that's where Portugal is. And I'll just share a few places that they find. Okay, the Cape of Good Hope, the southernmost part of Africa, is discovered. And some of these other names will pop up. These are explorers before Columbus. Bartholomew Diaz, Vasco da Gama reaches India in 1498, just a few years after Columbus reaches what he feels is the Indies. And then Pedro Cabral, he of course discovers the area of what today is Brazil. So for those people that know anything about Brazil, Brazil is the only Portuguese-speaking country in South America. The rest of it is dominated by the Spanish culture. And the reason for that is because Pedro Cabral was the first one in here starting a Portuguese settlement. This map's good. You can just take a look at all the various people that we had just discussed. There's da Gama and there's Diaz. Okay, there's da Gama coming up this way. Again, trying to reach the east. So hopefully you're thinking, well, what's the importance of Columbus then? He was just one of many explorers at the time. You are correct. But why does Columbus cross the Atlantic and why does Spain back him? Well, he had a different plan. Everybody else was reaching the east by sailing east. They would sail along the coast of Africa, not sail too far out into the Atlantic because they were scared and know not of sea monsters. But Spain backed him because these countries refused to. He went to these countries and proposed his idea, and all of them said, nope, that's a bad investment, we're not doing it. The king, his name was Ferdinand, and the Queen Isabella decided they would take a risk. As we talked in class, when Columbus discovered America, he was convinced that he had found Asia, or some islands off of Asia. He went to his deathbed. He died thinking he had found part of Asia. But what he did was he bounced around and explored what is most of the Caribbean today. Columbus's new idea was this. He's here in Spain. He wants to reach this area of the world. So his new idea is, well, to reach the east, I will sail west. Okay? Now, the problem is he did not know about this whole quarter of the world. So if you imagine putting this area over here, that's what Columbus believed the world was like. So he believed it was probably at least 25% smaller than it actually was. So, sailing west, that's his big plan, okay, to reach the east. So here he is, okay, and he is giving thanks to God, and in the background are his 3 ships. If you're a really good history student, you know what they are. But Columbus, of course, discovers the Western Hemisphere. Even though he is Italian, he claims it in the name of the Spanish king and queen. The lines on this map just show you all of his various voyages. Now, maybe you did not know it, but he did have 4 voyages to the New World. The first one was, of course, the most celebrated, but he would go 3 more times. And you can sort of see the various areas that he discovers. So when he first landed, he landed in what today is the Bahamas. He would go back and he would discover the area of what today is Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba, the islands of the Lesser Antilles down here. And he would also go along what today is the coast of Central America. But as you see, he never touched any part of North America. So I just listed them fast, so I'll just go through them. So there they are, Bahamas, Hispaniola, which of course Hispaniola is Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Jamaica, the coast of Central, and parts of South America. So on the map, there you can sort of see them again. So we've talked about the Vikings, and we just introduced a little bit about Columbus, but I want to kind of wrap things up here when we talk about this thing called the Columbian Exchange. Maybe you've heard of it before, but I want you to think about what you've been eating throughout the day. And where does that come from? Does it come from the Western Hemisphere? Okay? Or does it come from the Eastern Hemisphere and comes into the Americas? So what is amazing to most kids, when they look up here, they see things like, you probably knew that corn came from the Western Hemisphere, but something like the tomato was a Western Hemisphere thing. So imagine Italian cooking over here without tomatoes before the voyages of Columbus and all those explorations of the Western Hemisphere. Okay? You can also see other things. Cacao, which would be, of course, the bean that chocolate comes from. Various types of peppers, green peppers, jalapenos, all those types of things. But everything that we know of from our domesticated animals, they all come from the Eastern Hemisphere. So there's no such thing as like wild cattle. Okay? Same thing with horses. Those would come in as well. So this is what I want you to do and reflect on with the America article. I know you read about that. If Columbus is so important, then why are we not bearing the name of him? Why do we get the name America? So you guys have already read. So this is what I want you to reflect on. What's the most important fact? The thing I didn't know and I still wonder. So that's what I want you to wrap up on with Vikings and where America gets its name, because you know the answer to that. All right.